My name is Guillermo ACOSTA, and I'm the Senior Dean of the Faculty of Media and Creative Arts. And we're hosting this fantastic day today. Thanks to everyone for being here, and thanks to OREST SUSHKO for spearheading this initiative. So without further ado, I want to pass the floor to OREST SUSHKO, who's going to get the day started. A day that promises to be a very, very important day of learning and advancement and understanding new technologies, which one of the reasons why we chose this center of innovation to host this is because this is exactly what this type of centers is. It's a place to expand knowledge, to try to experiment, and to bring students, professors, and industry partners into advancing applied research. So, OREST, thank you.
Thank you very much, Guillermo. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. I wanted to introduce myself. My name is OREST SUSHKO, as Guillermo mentioned. I'm the program coordinator for the Film and Multi-Platform Storytelling program here at Humber. And many of you may be wondering what that has to do with ATSC 3. I'll contextualize it very quickly. I first learned about ATSC 3 consulting for a tech startup here in Toronto, which is doing some very unique and engaging work with mobile engagement involving the television spectrum. And learning more about mobile engagement and television spectrum led me to this place of convergence, which led me to ATSC 3. When I came to Humber, I wanted to carry that research and development forward, but not just in developing innovative platforms for teaching and learning, but also to build the first steps with Humber to create and develop and lead the way for Canada's first ATSC 3.0 living lab. And the ability to bring industry partnerships and to bring students, faculty together into an environment where we could help educate, advocate, and advance the standard here in Canada. Humber's also proud to be hosting the ATSC 3 TG3 Technology Group meetings that are taking place in the next coming days. And with that, I wanted to sincerely thank both Guillermo ACOSTA, our Senior Dean for Faculty of Media and Creative Arts, and Darren Lawless, our Senior Dean for Applied Research and Innovation, for their tremendous support. Without them, this event would not be happening, and this series of events this week would not be happening. So thank you very much. I also need to would like to pass a very special thank you to my Associate Dean, Andrew Ainsworth, and for having his patience dealing with my relentless exuberance about this standard over the last several months. So I assure you, Andrew, we're not moving on to ATSC 4 just yet. So we'll stick with ATSC 3 for a while. And certainly, last but not least, our distinguished speakers who are with us today. You'll have a chance and an opportunity, hopefully, to chat with them after their presentations as well. So thank you all for coming in today from all corners of North America. We have a very diverse group of people with us today. We have representatives from ICED, Innovation Science Economic Development Canada, the CRTC, CTV Bell Media, Pelmorix, the Weather Network, Rogers Telecommunications, TVO, and a host of other industry partners, manufacturers, and people in the service sector. So we welcome you all. I did want to share just a couple of housekeeping things with us today. So in order to document the rich content that's taking place today, we're going to be filming the event. And we also have various accoutrements available as far as coffee, tea, juice, etc. We'll have a lunch provided today at 12:30. We are also going to be conducting tours of the Barrett Center here some point, midpoint around lunchtime, say 1 o'clock. So for those interested in getting a tour of the center, we can meet out in the matrix space here in front and proceed with tours for you as well. In case of any alarms or emergency situations, please stay seated and we'll be directed for anything that, any kind of events that are occurring here at all. So we'll keep you informed on that. There are washrooms just down the hall here to the right-hand side. In your current agendas, we have Jerry Fritz speaking as one of our speakers early on this morning. Jerry's still speaking, but we may do a slight pause and break between his presentation and Dave's presentation just to give you a bit of a break for a few minutes there. So, and for me, it's a real honor and pleasure to introduce a very special guest we have with us today. Michael McEwen, who is the Director General for the North American Broadcasters Association. Michael found out, we reached out to Michael about this event partway through our process, and he really helped us carry the sword over the hill with this event. So we're very, very grateful and very much welcome Michael McEwen to the podium.
Actually, today was the first time I actually met OREST face-to-face. I feel like he's my closest personal friend. We've exchanged over 100 emails in the last 6 weeks. So my job actually is to introduce the president of ATSC 3.0, but in doing so, I want to give you all a little context about digital IP, and transitions and all of that. Because sadly, or maybe blessedly, I've been part of a lot of them. In 1990, I was sitting in Ottawa as Executive Vice President of the CBC, and I got a call from our head of engineering. And we were building the broadcast center down on Front Street. And he said, I want to talk to you about digital pipes. And I said, huh? He said, digital pipes. And I had no idea what he was talking about. Long story short, he made the pitch that this is the way of the future. And I said, well, who's got digital pipes? He said, well, nobody. And I said, pardon me? And oh, by the way, it's going to cost you another $3 million. Pardon me? The BBC was playing with it. There was a little discussion in the States about it, but nobody had put it into a building yet. So I had a look at it, debated it, got authorization from the board, and we put in digital pipes. Well, that was a pretty smart thing to do because we didn't have to rip those pipes out 5 years later and make them all digital. We saved the corporation about $40 million. And that was the start of my digital transition. In the mid-90s, we knew about the work that was going on with ATSC. We knew about the Telecommunications Act coming to the United States that would start a transition to digital high-definition television. And for my sins, at that time, I was made chair of a task force on the future of digital television in Canada. And in 1996, we started our work just about the time that CBS went on the air in New York, I think, and Raleigh had already been on the air. So we started our work, and for those of you who understand the economics of the Canadian industry, we don't have the cash that the Americans have. The markets aren't big enough, the volumes aren't there, and also there's a debate in this country a little bit over the future of over-the-air broadcasting and what it can bring benefit to the broadcasters, because about 95% of the audiences are delivered on cable, satellite, or fiber, and increasingly on the internet, of course. So at that time, we came up with a strategy, said, yes, we have to go digital. We should go high-definition digital. And I delivered that report at the end of 1997. And our strategy was to fast follow the American rollout. And by fast follow, I mean 2 to 3 years. And the idea is we'll see how it's going in the States, and we'll see what happens. Well, in 2009, there was analog shutdown in the United States. In 2011, there was analog shutdown in Canada. And that transition was completed. Now, I have to say that we're still, we're now only 20 years in at that point. At about that time, there was work being done in the US on 2.0. And I think that came out in 2010, 2011 in there. But as soon as it came out, it was essentially old news. And so there was a lot of talk about what the next generation should be. And at that time, there was a lot of debate, a lot of discussion, and I rejoined NABA, which I'd had a long association with on and off for almost 20 years, as Director General in 2012. And my first task was to work with the board on a set of requirements for broadcasters in the next generation of television. And I see Glenn Reitmeyer's here. He was on the board at that time. And there were debates. I think you chaired some of those meetings, Glenn. And all to say that it was a very important discussion. We started it kind of February, worked right through, and in August of 2012, we came up with a white paper on the next generation of terrestrial broadcasting. And I'm not going to go into it because Madeline's actually going to take you through some of the elements of ATSC 3.0. But we had 8 must-haves, and we had 8 would-be nice. And you know what? We got most of them. We absolutely have most of them. And there were some considerations, and I am going to share those considerations as I introduce Madeline. We thought that ATSC 3.0 must be developed within a relatively short time frame. At that time, we said 2 years. Well, in fact, the work was progressing and we knew where it was going, but it wasn't 2 years. But it was done in enough time that we could contemplate what a future would be with a repacked spectrum system and all of that, the benefits of getting it down into a better compressed frame. It was thought that ATSC 3.0 would be incompatible with current broadcast systems, and it is, and therefore must provide improvements in performance, functionality, and efficiency significant enough to warrant implementation of a non-backwards compatible system. And I think they've done that. The third one is interoperability with broadcast systems and non-broadcast distribution systems must be part of any new standard. Done that too, and there's many elements of that. And finally, and I think this is the penultimate point because it's both technology and it's the nature of our business. Television broadcasting is increasingly evolving to multimedia broadcasting, sending multiple signals simultaneously to a variety of devices. The broadcast signal must support a variety of content types, which may vary by day part and may be received as a viewing experience of any of the content elements or a composite of them. This change requires support for synchronous and non-synchronous relationships between disparate content elements, metadata for discovery of content, for image scaling of spatial and temporal resolution, and for triggering interactivity between screens and devices. All of that is part of ATSC 3.0. It really is a remarkable achievement. I will say that in September of 2012, I went to a TG3 meeting and presented these requirements. And at the end of it, there was dead silence in the room. And then some people say, well, not my company, we didn't vote for that. And another, no, that can't be done. You know, what the hell do you know about it? And it really was, and I had to say that I was very glad that my board had signed off on it because they were all senior vice presidents and executive vice presidents of the various networks and member stations. And I'm saying, well, I'm sorry your boss has actually signed off on it. And I remember Glenn snickering in the back of the room. Those requirements are really important, and when you're dealing with new technology, you have to understand what the business case is. You have to understand why you're doing this. And that's why, you know, broadcasters need to understand it, and they need to translate those benefits to the consumer. And in a market-driven approach, those benefits have to be seen and they have to be tangible. ATSC 3.0 does that. Madeline was chair of TG3 for a while, and now she's president of ATSC 3.0. And it's her job not only to keep that standard relevant and tweak it as it goes along, but it's her job to implement it. And I'm very pleased to say that Madeline's got all the talent and drive in the world to do that, and we're in good hands. Madeline Noland.
Wow, I don't know how I'm going to live up to that. Well, first of all, thank you so much. Thank you, OREST. Thank you, Dean ACOSTA. Thank you, Dean Lawless and Associate Dean Andrew, for having us here. What a fantastic place to be. What a fantastic place to talk about a new technology that crosses disciplines. So I want to thank all of those also distinguished guests who are here from the world of academia, from the world of industry, and from the world of government and regulations, all of whom play an extremely important part in developing and adopting new technologies to move us forward. So I think Michael did a great job of introducing who is ATSC. We are an organization, a global organization of roughly 150 member companies, and roughly 350 to 375 active participants from those companies were participating in the development of ATSC 3.0. And these people came from all across the globe, and I have to say how lucky we were to have the best and brightest people working on this standard to achieve these crazy requirements that Michael's group came up with. And in fact, ATSC did do outreach across the globe to gather requirements. We wound up with 150-something requirements all at the end of the day, which we boiled down into 13 major use cases, many of which Michael has already covered. So interestingly, I started with ATSC around 2010, 2011, representing a small company. We were doing startup work with interactivity using eBIF when OCAP and eBIF were the thing. And I've been representing other companies for ATSC, most recently LG Electronics for 6 years prior, when I was TG3 chair as an LG representative and now president of ATSC. So that's a little bit about me. One thing I'd like to do is I'd like to acknowledge and thank the members of ATSC who are here in the room. And I'd like to ask some folks to stand up because not only do I want to acknowledge their presence here, but I want you all to harvest their business cards and pick their brains mercilessly because they are the experts and they have the answers. So if you are on our board of directors, please stand up. So Dave, Glenn, Ira, Pete, you're going to remember all these. If you're a chairman of one of these technology groups, please stand up. No, you guys have to stay up. Stay up, stay up, stay up. Luke and Young and Yan, thank you. And everybody else in the room, everybody stay standing up. Come on, you're not that tired yet. And everybody else in the room who is involved in the ATSC development and is a member of ATSC. So thank you all very much. We hail from across the globe, and we are here to answer your questions and help you understand what this thing is and why on earth we're doing it. Thanks so much, you guys. So one of the things that we tried to do with today's program is to help you get a comprehensive exposure, not just to the technology of ATSC 3.0, but what could you do potentially with this technology. So we're going to be covering a wide range of things. We're going to have everything from the basics of what does it do and why, all the way to a lot of different ways that you can think about using it. And as you think about this, it's important to think about what kind of world we live in today in the world of media. We live in the world of global media standards that are based on IP. So we, broadcasters, live in a world of the global standard of Wi-Fi, the global standard of internet delivery, and the global standard of LTE 5G and whatever comes next. I guess they're already thinking about 6G. So these are all major IP delivery, data delivery networks. And what ATSC 3.0 is here to do is to bring another internet delivery network to the world. And what I'd like you to do as you listen to these presenters is not just think about television services to people and TVs. I want you to think about the value of your spectrum, one of the great natural resources that we have. How can we get the most value out of this spectrum? How can we bring the most to the people of our country? Also think about the value of your infrastructure. You have high power, high tower ability to deliver data to pretty much everybody in this country. And you have this infrastructure in place, it's already operating, and how can you get the most value out of that infrastructure? And then the last thing I want you to think about is what is the value of one-to-many? The one-to-many efficiency of a broadcast standard versus a two-way standard. How can I send a piece of data to not one receiver or two receivers, but thousands of receivers for the same price? So how can I say, okay, well, I have a software update that needs to get to the entire fleet of rental cars or the entire fleet of self-driving cars. I don't want to send that software update to each car individually. I want to send the update. And all the devices out there will pick it up. This is the power of one-to-many. It's the most efficient way to get a large amount of data to a large amount of devices. So I would like you to sort of think about those three things as you listen today. Think about your spectrum, think about your high power, high tower infrastructure, and think about the one-to-many use cases that an IP delivery network can enable. Lastly, I want to acknowledge being here at Humber. This is an interdisciplinary campus. And if there was ever a technology that has an interdisciplinary opportunities, ATSC 3 is it. You can discuss IP data delivery, you can discuss RF engineering, you can discuss ethics in broadcasting, journalism, communications, big data. It really spans multiple disciplines, and my hope is that if Humber was to begin experimenting with ATSC 3.0, perhaps having a lab for it, that there would be a real opportunity for faculty and students and industry to come together from a variety of disciplines to think about the best uses of your spectrum and your high power, high tower infrastructure. And I think Jerry's going to correct me in a minute, because we know that ATSC 3.0 works on low power, low tower too, which you also have an infrastructure for. So with that, I would like to sort of get on with the program. So open your minds, think about what this can do for you, think about how this can help your students, faculty, and your opportunities for innovation in Canada. And what I'd like to do is turn it over to Jerry Fritz, who is from One Media, and prepare to get the fire hose treatment, because Jerry talks even faster than me. But no, I think what the idea of opening the program with Jerry's presentation is to give you a new understanding of what your broadcast infrastructure and what your broadcast spectrum can do for you. So with that, I think we can kick off the program. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and I'm really looking forward to this and looking forward to working with all of you. Thank you.